Standing like a tree with my roots deep down, my branches wide and open. Come down the rain, come down the sun, come down the fruit to this heart that is open. 'Cause I'm standing like a tree, standing like a tree, standing like a tree with my roots deep down, my branches wide and open. Come down the rain, come down the sun, come down the fruit to this heart that is open. 'Cause I'm standing like a tree, standing like a tree, standing like a tree. It's a nice way to just link in, excuse me, with a song. I can see one or two of you joining me. Rachel O'Reilly from Lincolnshire, South Lincolnshire. Hi. Melanie Mamakos from California. Lovely to see you. And Yolanda van Neuwenkamp. Neuwenkamp. Sorry if I got that wrong. From Groningen in Netherlands. And Jan Reuters, also from the Netherlands, northern part. Louise Art. Angelica Minier from Germany. Louise, I forget where you're from. Is it France? Anyway, I apologise if I got that wrong. It's lovely to see you linking in. Good to welcome you. I'm JJ. And here's an altar from, I did a live singing session with a few people in the garden the other day to honour the earth. And this is the remnants of that altar. So tonight, Sovereign Earth is going to be on the theme and the subject of paradox. Let me just have another quick look. Brighton, Louise. I put you to beyond the south coast, over the pond. Brighton. And yeah, lovely. Paradox, Sovereign Earth 51. So just to remind anyone who's joining, the idea of Sovereign Earth is to honour the earth and to offer these modules, these sessions, these little beads on a mandala, on a rosary, or I've forgotten what the Eastern term for a rosary is there. Anyway, beads on a string, each you could say a pearl of wisdom if we're stretching it, but to enable us to work towards putting nature as being sacred again, for humanity to regard nature as being sacred again. So paradox as a route and a means of connecting with the divine, and as a vehicle and a tool for a fuller life. And paradoxically, it's an interesting subject. So let me embark on trying to draw out the essence of paradox. So what is paradox? Well, it's defined as something that's logically self-contradictory. So a statement that runs counter to one's reason, or sort of counters its own argument almost, because it's not logical, it's beyond logical. So paradox is a contradiction. Let me give a couple of examples just to give us a flavour. Some of you we'll all have a sense maybe of paradox. And actually, as I go through this, it doesn't matter if you don't get all the words as I speak or as I read from various pieces. It's not about grasping the words, it's more about sensing the essence and the meaning as we go along. So don't worry if you can't follow it all here. It'll come through from here. In fact, love is one of the greatest paradoxes, but that's another, that's almost a program in its own right. So paradox, standing is more tiring than walking, might be a paradox, an example. Standing being more tiring than walking. I suspect driving is more tiring than walking as well. It's a paradox. Standing still can be more tiring. to know oneself, to know thyself, first have to unknow thyself. That's been my experience, and I believe it to be true. To fully know oneself, you have to unknow oneself. And the other one is to fully live a life, one has to understand some aspect of death. Someone has to die at some level to fully embrace life. It's a paradox. You don't have to agree with all this, but you have your own views, just as valid. There's a lovely word, oxymoron. It doesn't matter if you haven't heard of it. The oxymoron it means a contradiction, a complete contradiction. So the word oxymoron is a paradox. Oxy means sharp, pointed, and moron means dull, stupid. So it's a word that's both, it honours both aspects. So an oxymoron example would be global village. Contradiction within one word or within one phrase. Global village. Artificial intelligence is sometimes considered to be an oxymoron. I'm trying to think of... Oh yes, impossible is not in my vocabulary. Sometimes people say, impossible's not in my vocabulary. It's kind of oxymoron, paradox, contradiction. So the way of... Let's just see a couple more. Mare from Germany, Sandy Coombs from Tintagel in Cornwall, Carol Matthews from over the valley in Stroud, Rachel O'Reilly, lovely. In the midst of life, we are in death. From the Book of Common Prayer, says Rachel O'Reilly. How true. And Christopher White, he likes the creation paradox. Cretan, not creation, Cretan paradox. If a Cretan tells you all Cretans are liars, is he telling the truth or is he telling a lie? He goes on, but paradoxes galore. And all clues to wisdom, I think. The more I've explored paradox, the more wisdom I find. So let's have just a bit of song to allow some of that to sink in. So what song might we have? I went down to the water's edge. There I found my coat of sealskin. I went up to the mountain high. There I found my cloak of feathers. I will swim and I will fly. Tell the tales the birds have taught me. I will swim and I will fly. Sing the songs the birds the sea has brought me. I went down to the water's edge. There I found my coat of sealskin. Went up to the mountain high. There I found my cloak of feathers. I will swim and I will fly. Tell the tales the birds have taught me. I will swim and I will fly. Sing the songs the sea has brought me. I went up to the mountain high. There I found my cloak of feathers. I went down to the water's edge. There I found my coat of sealskin. I will swim and I will fly. Sing the songs the sea has brought me. I will swim and I will fly. Tell the tales the birds have taught me. So there's paradox in that song, contradictions. Down to the water's edge. I also mixed up the words quite a bit, as you'll have noticed, and yet they worked. So I just want to touch on the way of Tao that Lao Tzu in the 6th century BC, so a few thousand years ago. The way of Tao talks about the natural balance of the Tao. And there's paradox at work here because they talk about the source and ideal of existence. Let me read this bit. The source and ideal of all existence is unseen but not transcendent, immensely powerful yet supremely humble. There's paradox in this way of the Tao. immensely powerful, supremely humble, the root of all things. And there's this wonderful concept of, and this is paradox, that we've all got desires and free will. We can choose a way to express our own nature in life. But most of us, all of us at some point, but many act unnaturally, upsetting the natural balance of things. And the way of the Tao is the intention of the Tao is to lead us back to that natural state, to return to the natural state in harmony with the Tao. Now, how it does that, it uses paradox a lot, which we'll come into in a minute. And it regards language and conventional wisdom as inherently biased and artificial. In other words, it challenges convention and it challenges sort of conceived wisdom, what we take as day-to-day wisdom, conventional wisdom. It challenges. I mean, there's a lovely statement. Let me see if I can find it. Oh yeah, you can best serve civilization by being against what usually passes for it. You can best serve civilization by being against what generally passes for it. I certainly believe that to be true. It's one of my guiding aphorisms. But again, it's finding the right way. I just want to share a poem from Rumi, which kind of, for me at least, touches on this. It touches on this counterculture. What does he say? He says, this is Rumi from the 13th century. Those who don't feel this love pulling them like a river. Those who don't feel this love pulling them like a river. Those who don't drink dawn like a cup of spring water or take in sunset like supper. Those who don't want to change, let them sleep. This love is beyond the study of theology. That old trickery and hypocrisy. If you want to improve your mind that way, sleep on. I've given up on my brain, says Rumi. I've given up on my brain. I've torn the cloth to shreds and thrown it away. If you're not completely naked, then wrap your beautiful robe of words around you and sleep. I think that's classic and brilliant on the part of Rumi. And he kind of, there's a paradox in there. I don't know if you can, you'd have to connect with it from here, but somewhere in our bodies that resonates and sings. Okay. So Lao Tzu encouraged an approach of non-action. There's another paradox, isn't it? To achieve change, non-action. The ultimate way of achieving change, non-action. Rather than action, he talked about Wu Wei, the way of not acting. And it's a central concept of the way of the Tao. It's entirely paradoxical. I mean, actually, there's another thing. Can I find it? Yeah. Here's I think, what's an example of what we're talking about. Be bold enough to be small enough to let the world be awesome, and it will. Be bold enough to be small enough to let the world be awesome, and it will. That was given to me by a couple who I hand-fasted years ago. Beautiful saying. So this not acting, letting life flow spontaneously, it doesn't mean you create nothingness and flowing with the moment, and it's based on simplicity and humility. Key virtues as a contrast to selfish action. There's a lovely term, zhuang, and it means sitting in oblivion. Can you imagine that for a minute? That's a paradox. Sitting in oblivion. So let's have a wee song. So there's a lot to take in there, so just songs can help it settle. Okay, there's one in my mind coming through. to do with paradox as well. Yes. You can't heal the earth if you don't heal the people. You can't heal the earth if you don't heal the people. You can't heal the earth if you don't heal the people, 'cause the people are part of the earth. You can't heal the earth if you don't heal the people. You can't heal the earth if you don't heal the people. You can't heal the earth if you don't heal the people, 'cause the people are part of the earth. So a few examples of paradox, and the way that paradox is a teacher through the way of Zen, through the way of Tao. I will come on to Zen. This is the way of Tao. Those who know do not speak. Those who speak do not know. A man with outward courage dares to die. A man with inward courage dares to live. Now they say man, it applies to women as well, just take it as a woman with outward courage dares to die. A woman with inner courage dares to live. Do you have the patience to wait until your mud settles, until the water is clear? The flame that burns twice as bright, burns half as long. And then there's that old one from the Beatles, I think George Harrison put this to music. The further one travels, the less one learns, the less one knows. I haven't got the tune quite right, but I think you know what I'm alluding to at least. The further one travels, the less one learns, or the less one knows. So those are some hints at the way of Tao, which is full of paradox. A bit later I'll come on to Zen, but in between, many years ago, yes, a good nearly 20 years ago, I was in a period of transition in life, and a very challenging time that was. And I wrote up various notes from that time, and I was browsing through them in relation to this. And these words are from Robert A. Johnson, Owning Your Shadow. I'm going to do them in different parts, but they're so profound, I think. I just want to share these about paradox. This is the essence of paradox for me. Wherever we find ourselves, we need to honour the part of our lives that lives in shadow, to redeem those qualities which we've forgotten or ignored. If we accept these opposing elements and endure the collision of them in full consciousness, we embrace the paradox. If we accept the opposing elements and endure the collision of them in full consciousness, we embrace the paradox. The capacity for paradox, get this, the capacity for paradox is the measure of spiritual strength and the surest sign of maturity. To move from opposition and contradiction, always a quarrel, to paradox, always holy, is to make a leap of consciousness. That leap takes us through middle-age chaos and gives us a vista that enlightens the remaining years of life. I've certainly found that to be true. If you're not there yet, you've got that beautiful experience ahead of you. A huge amount of energy is wasted by modern people. In opposing their own situation. A huge amount of energy is wasted by modern people in opposing their own situation. We all do it. To transform opposition into paradox is to allow both sides of an issue, both pairs of opposites, to exist in equal dignity, allowing both sides of an issue, both pairs of opposites, to exist in equal dignity If I can stay with my conflicting impulses long enough, the two opposing forces will teach each other something and produce an insight that serves them both. This is not compromise, but a depth of understanding which allows me to know with certainty what I should do. The solution must arise from the dynamics of the opposing energies that are facing each other. A song while we let that settle. We all come from the goddess, and to her we shall return like a drop of rain, flowing to the ocean. Hoof and horn, all that dies shall be reborn. Corn and grain, all that falls shall rise again. We all come from the goddess, and to her we shall return like a drop of rain, flowing to the ocean. Hoof and horn, all that dies shall be reborn. Corn and grain, all that falls shall rise again. So in a little while we'll have an experiential bringing some of this together, but there's some words I still want to share because they're so powerful and such great teachers, I believe. I shared this opening statement on the couple of days ago when I was saying about this broadcast, and John King, who's possibly out there now, I hope, with Lynn, he responded when I said, this is the caption that went with the call to join me. Who does not spend much of his time debating whether to do the disciplined task or to goof off a bit longer and stay in dreamy nowhere? Neither is holy, but exactly in the paradox between them lies the holy place. And he said he had goofed off and gone for a walk in the woods, which is a gateway to doing something and wisdom. We want resolution, but we'd have something far greater if able to ask for the consciousness to bear the paradox. I can stand it no longer. Good. Now something will happen. When the unstoppable bullet hits the impenetrable wall, we find the religious experience. It is precisely here that one will grow. The ego is fashioned between the hammer and the anvil. Heroism in our time is the ability to stand paradox because it requires courage to face and bridge the opposing forces. Don't just do something, stand there. Paradox is brought to its next stage of development by way of a highly conscious waiting. The ego can do no more. It must wait for that which is greater than itself. Now here's a paradox. Everybody is happy inside, they just don't know it yet. Everybody's in love with life, it's the best kept secret. We are made of the stuff of the stars. We dance until we die and then we're born again. We dance until we die and then we're born again. Everybody is happy inside, they just don't know it yet. Everybody's in love with life, it's the best kept secret. We are made of the stuff of the stars. We dance until we die and then we're born again. We dance until we die and then we're born again. We dance until we die and then we're born again. And there's a paradox, isn't it? We're all capable of happiness, and it resides within us. We just don't know it yet. Everybody's in love with life, it's the best kept secret. I mean, it's, yeah. The paradox, I'm not going to try and analyse or just enjoy the playful reverence. It's the last brief piece from Robert A. Johnson, Owning Your Shadow. To consent to paradox is to consent to suffering that which is greater than the ego. I'm going to read that again. To consent to paradox is to consent to suffering that which is greater than the ego. The religious experience lies exactly at that point of insolubility where we feel we can proceed no further, when we can't go on. That's where the gems lie. This is an invitation to that which is greater than oneself. One makes a mandala, I'll tell you what that is in a minute. One makes a mandala every time one says something that is true. Whenever you have a clash of opposites within your being, and neither will give way to the other, you can be certain, he says, that God is present. You can use your own word there, but we dislike this experience intensely and avoid it at any cost. But if we can endure it, the conflict without resolution is a direct experience of God. Now that's pretty powerful stuff. The mandala, let me see, I've got a picture of a mandala here. You might say, what's that? Can you see it? Yeah, it's an almond shape. Now if you imagine yourself in here, what did he say? He said, one makes a mandala every time one says something that is true. So certainly as a druid, a truth, wisdom speaker, to hold the contrasting opposites. So a mandala is an aura that is formed around somebody when they speak the truth or when they're in a holy place, when they're in the place of paradox, I would say, holding both sides of the almond shape. And that's the essence as a symbol of paradox. Both sides, both opposites, stuck in the middle, enduring without resolution. Okay, let's try and just simply approach this from a different angle. It might work for some of you. And it's an invitation. Come along as far as you want, or just sit and listen or observe. So we're going to go into a guided visualization. I invite us to close our eyes. And those who've been here before will be familiar with the concept of finding yourself magically walking in a forest on a path through the woods at dusk. Maybe barefoot on a very soft, beautiful, grassy path through the trees. One by one the leaves are falling from the trees. It is autumn, and autumn leaves fall. You're walking and the leaves are falling on you like blessings of confetti, of blessings of leaf wisdom. The tree is showering you with leaf blessings as you walk, shedding beauty in its death throes, each leaf a light and a flame with colour. So you're walking over this grass, leaf-strewn grass, and you make your way into a clearing where there's a huge circle of trees. It's a grove. You may be familiar with it, but if not, here it is, magically conjured up in your imagination. A grove of trees. And it's familiar, it's welcoming, it's wise, it's simple, and it's humble. And in the centre of this grove on this occasion is a huge old tree, the world tree. Tree of immense wisdom and age and beauty and gnarly and old. Can be of it whatever tree you want it to be, but you walk up to it. It's far too big to get your arms around, but you give it a big hug. We're allowed to hug in non-COVID land, and we hug with gratitude this beautiful, healing tree. And in hugging the tree, just connecting with this huge, massive root system underground in the dark, which is drawing up masses of water each hour to feed through the trunk and up into the top of the tree. So you take your attention to the trunk of the tree, holding up this vast structure. How does it do it? Great strength over time, and yet the tree gives way to the wind. It bends in the wind, doesn't fight it. The way of Tao, the way of wisdom, the way of the Druid. And taking your attention into the top of the tree, huge canopy of the tree, which feasts and absorbs sunlight and feeds down nutrients to the roots. So here's this living paradox tree. A tree is paradoxical by nature, half in the dark, half in the light, strong yet humble, immensely powerful yet very humble. Standing like a tree with my roots deep down, my branches wide and open. Come down the rain, come down the sun, come down the fruit to this heart that is open, 'cause I'm standing like a tree, standing like a tree, standing like a tree. And you give a squeeze and you let go and stand before the tree. You just take a step or two back, still looking at the tree. And you take your awareness into a mandala that surrounds you, an aura of truth and beauty that is almond-shaped, enclosing you, encasing you, holding you. And you're aware that on one side, to your right perhaps, is the sea. A little way off there is sea. And to your left, the other side, there are mountains. And above you is sky. Below you is earth. And to your left on the horizon is the moon. And to your right on the horizon is the sun. You're not sure if it's dawn or dusk, but you're in this space between. this liminal space, holding above and below, dark and light, sun and moon, earth and sea, holding them with this almond-shaped mandala around you. You're standing in truth, which doesn't seek to resolve any of these, but just honours them as is. Just enjoy being in that place for a moment. Place of all possibilities, where you don't have to worry about any possibility. So just giving thanks to the tree, to the earth, to the grove of trees around you. You make your way back gently, slowly, confidently, simply along the path by which you came. Walking on the fallen leaves of colourful tree blessings. And you find your way back along the path, and magically in your imagination you bring yourself back here to this space. Now, I had meant to bring this sentence into the visualization, but I think it will still work if it's the words by Sebastian Faulks from one of his books, but he says, to conceive of ourselves as fragmentary matter, cohering for a millisecond between two eternities of darkness, is very difficult. I'm going to read it once or twice more, so you can get the gist of it. To conceive of ourselves as fragmentary matter, cohering for a millisecond between two eternities of darkness, is very difficult. Maybe it's the ultimate paradox. Once more, to conceive of ourselves as fragmentary matter, cohering for just 1 millisecond between two eternities of darkness. That's us. That's what a life is. There's something powerful in bringing that into consciousness. So that's a mandala. So I just want to draw it together by considering Zen, which I find the way of Zen is like an Eastern Druidry, and Druidry is a Western form of Zen Buddhism. But that's my own take on it. And Zen, the Sanskrit word, is linked to the word for meditation and also absorption. Maybe by sitting one absorbs a deeper truth, pointing to the true nature of mind, which is beyond thought. So Zen is trying to, and paradox I suggest, is trying to absorb the meaning of life and understand the meaning of life directly, but through experience rather than language, although language can be a key to understanding it. So I don't know if you're familiar with the term koan, K-O-A-N, koan. They're a beautiful art form, mystical, magical, spiritual art form, I would call them. They're designed to provoke the great doubt. They provoke the great doubt. They're paradoxical for a start, and it serves as a metaphor for principles of reality beyond the private opinion of one person. So what's it doing? It serves as a metaphor for a reality beyond what I might sort of understand in the moment, but there's something beyond. The koan, the beauty of a koan, it exhausts the analytical. I think this is what paradox does as well. It goes beyond it exhausts the analytical and the egoic in order to reveal the more intimate no mind. It's a hammer to shatter fixed thinking. A koan is a hammer to shatter fixed thinking. So there's various koans. I mean, well, one paradox and koan I came up with years ago, I wrote, why is the opposite of impertinent not pertinent? So you can't quite, it doesn't fit, does it? You can't get your head around that. Another great koan is, if you repeat it often enough, and this came from Ramana Maharishi, who sat on a mountain at Arunachala in India, where I've been actually. He sat there and he just pondered for years, who am I? Who am I? And it is a great koan. If you just sit and just work that through for a little while, it's the great conundrum. I just want to finish with a koan that kind of sums up our lives. It sums up the current situation, but it also gives a teaching and a clue as to a way through. And that's what paradox, I hope, some of what I've talked and sung about will help us all hold with the moment and sit in this paradox. But here's the koan. There's a guy being chased by a tiger. So it can be a man or a woman, but it's a person chased by a tiger, running for their lives. They get to the edge of a precipice, and just before the tiger grabs them, they jump over, and they're lucky enough to grab hold of a vine. So they grab this vine, clinging on for their lives, and they think, oh God, yeah, tiger at the top. And then they look down way beneath in the canyon, and what's there? Another tiger. The bottom of the canyon, down below, another tiger. Tiger above, tiger below, hanging on for dear life onto this vine. Out of one eye catches sight of two mice running along just above, running along a ledge just above. And they get to the vine and they start nibbling and gnawing at the vine. These two mice, either side of the vine. And then at the other side, at the other corner of this other eye, or her other eye, what does this? Catches sight of a strawberry plant and a beautiful, huge strawberry. So they pick the strawberry and they taste it and they think, isn't this beautiful? So there's a koan, there's paradox, and all sorts of contradictions. I hope I haven't tied you in knots with it. I hope I've given you some glimpses to the beauty of paradox. I was just seeing if there was a song I was going to sing to finish, and there is. And excuse me. Whenever I use the term God, and this song happens to have the word God in it, for years I couldn't speak that word. I was brought up in a way that it didn't give me the right relationship to God. I've found it. I've reincorporated God. I don't need that word. I'm at ease with that word. And some of you may not be, and it's all right not to be, and it's great if you are. But it's the word for that which is beyond. It's the word for the divine, the beauty, the nameless. Anyway, this song starts off with, God's mercy is water. It flows to the lowest. God's mercy is water. It flows to the lowest. God's mercy is water. It flows to the lowest. God's mercy is water. It flows to the lowest. I'll become humble as the earth, to be embraced by the merciful. I'll become humble as the earth, to be embraced by the merciful. So we'll finish with that. So that's Paradox. I hope you're not too confused. I hope it's helped in some small way. And next Sovereign Earth will be in 2 weeks' time, so I'm doing every other week. I don't know the subject yet. That's a paradox. And Earth Service, the singing, each Friday at 8 o'clock on here. So this Friday and every Friday, singing for the earth, singing for our souls, singing for each other. Lots of love. I'm going to get a drink of water, and then I'll join you for your comments on here. I look forward to that and seeing you again. Bye for now. Hearts going up on the right, and it's beautiful. Thank you all. Lots of love. There you go. Bye bye.